we got Auburn at Kentucky. Again, we already touched on the interview. If you missed the interview, we had with Mark Story, who is a leading writer in Lexington, covers this team forwards and backwards. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast version of BetMGM tonight to get all that information. Broke the news to us that Jackson Robinson looking quite iffy with that wrist, straight from the mouth of Mark Pope, so he may be out of action in this one. Right now, Auburn laying 5.5. Total at 168.5, sky high. Probably going to take our breath away. But again, let's recap a conversation we already kind of dug into in the last segment. What do you like in Auburn, Kentucky?
Well, I just like that Auburn has a higher defensive efficiency than Kentucky. When you look at Auburn and you look at Kentucky offensively, they're both in the top 10. I mean, there's a reason why they both put up points in bunches. The difference is that Kentucky is a Pope typical team where they struggle on the defensive end, right? Right now, the Wildcats, they have the 61st best defense in the country when it comes to defensive efficiency. Auburn has the 12th best defense when it comes to defensive efficiency in the country. And to me, in college basketball, if I am going to bet on a team, I'm going to bet on the better defensive team. Defense always seems to show up where shot making, there are games where, look, they're 18, 19, like the oldest guy is 23. They're thinking about other things at times instead of just going in and making basketball shots. I like this Auburn team. Obviously, they are an NCAA title favorite, but to me, their defense is going to be the difference between whether they make a deep run in the SEC tournament or in the NCAA tournament. I think that their defense comes up big against the Wildcats. I like Auburn at -5.5.
Yeah, again, I'm probably going to wait to play this, quite frankly, in the morning. And I might same game parlay it. And typically the strategy I like to employ on those SGPs is, I'll take the points a little bit higher for Kentucky, get them up to like +9.5, +10.5. I'll take the line down a little bit, like 5 to 7 points, and then windmill slam dunk that over and try to achieve like +100 to +110 within that range on that simple little two-leg build. And I think that's probably going to be the best approach. I don't disagree that Auburn is a superior defensive team. It's very clear. You look at Auburn over the last 30 days, 75 in EFGD, giving up only 29.2% along the arc, 51.1% inside of it. Kentucky hasn't played hardly any defense all year long. 217 EFGD in their last 8 games, and where they're most vulnerable is in the interior, where they're allowing 57% from inside the arc, only 30.7% outside of it. But you're facing Janiah Broome. He's a front runner for the Wooden Award at -275 on BetMGM for all of the reasons. As I mentioned, probably 35-15, entirely reachable and on the table for him. But Kentucky really gets after on the offensive glass, generate a ton of those second chance opportunities as well. And the threes are falling, even without Jackson Robinson. I think they can hang somewhat. So I'm, again, going to play the same game parlay method, a little cushion in there to avoid any kind of pushing on either the line and or the total. All right, let's move on to Texas Tech and Kansas. And if you look at Kansas, a team right now very much on the struggle bus, but they won back-to-back games, so maybe they started to right the ship. Kansas is now laying 4.5, so that line has moved after an open at 3.5. Total still the same at 143.5 there at BetMGM. Will, what's your lean in Red Raiders and Jayhawks?
I really like the Red Raiders in this one. It was my sledgehammer play for a reason. I understand that they're a little beat up right now, but I also have this theory of if you can get out on the court, then you're not injured. You're just a little bit hurt, right? I like this Texas A&M team. I've been burned too many times or been on the correct winning side, but definitely not the correct bet side, right? Like I had Houston earlier on in this year where Kansas, they were going to the free throw line up 6 with 18 seconds left in the first overtime. You miss both free throw shots there. Houston hits a three-pointer. They steal the inbounds pass and then hit another three-pointer to get to second overtime and win that game. Brutal. I won that bet. I should not have won that bet. That wasn't a good bet. Kansas should have won that game. The next weekend, I bet Kansas, right? They're playing Baylor. They're all upset. They're going to come out. It's a Bill Self team. They're going to find a way to win that basketball game. They're up by 21 freaking points against Baylor, and they find a way to lose. This Jayhawks team, they won their last 2 games. It just doesn't feel like a strong Bill Self team. When you are the Kansas Jayhawks and your head coach is Bill Self, you're going to get a little bit of extra love. They were ranked for far too long this season, and they went into it as the number one team, a team that most people kind of thought, they're probably not the number one team in the country. So to me, I'm going to go with the Red Raiders, especially since I'm getting some points. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that this Kansas team doesn't all of a sudden go from the pumpkin back into, the Cinderella carriage at the end of the day.
Yeah, I honestly think the strongest bet is the under in this game. I like the under at 143.5. I think it's going to be in the upper 130s when it's all said and done. Now, the big question mark is, will Chance McMillan and Darian Williams be available for this Red Raiders team? Offensively and defensively, they bring a lot to the table. But look at Tech, decent 57 EFGD over the last 30 days. They're only giving up 46.1% inside the arc, 34.4% outside of it. Kansas, if they have a strength, it's certainly not an offense, but it is defending the rock. They're 38 EFGD, giving up 47.7% inside the arc and only 30.9% outside of it. So, again, my strongest bet in this game, under 143.5 inside Fall Gallon, with Kansas welcoming Texas Tech to their house. All right, let's go to Alabama and Tennessee. That game right now, the Volunteers at home, laying 3.5. You got the 1 seed stakes, maybe here on the line. Over-under sitting at a whole bunch of nickels, 155.5. Will, what's your lean in Crimson Tide and Volunteers?
I feel really weird in a Tennessee basketball game where I say I kind of think I lean towards the over, but here's the reason that I lean towards the over is that Tennessee this year, they're playing really slow, but they're still a top 25 offense when it comes to offensive efficiency. Alabama's going to get your points. You don't have to worry about that. They're going to play as fast as possible. They're going to get up as many shots as possible. Oates wants them shooting threes. He wants them attacking the basket and getting dunks. They don't waste any time in that mid-range stuff, right? So that Bama's going to get the shots up. So from that standpoint, you're good. Where it comes to Tennessee is while they are much slower than they are in typical seasons, this is a Tennessee team that there's a bunch of different players that can hit shots. Like last year, if Dalton Knecht didn't hit a shot, it didn't feel like Tennessee was going to make a lot of baskets and get a lot of points. This Tennessee team, while they go slow, it's more of a tortoise versus the hare type of approach where you're going to go slow, but you're going to make sure that you get the correct shots up and their quality looks. This Tennessee team has proven that aside from like a glaring Florida game at the end of January, and I want to say that there was one other game where they went something crazy of like 2 for 35 from the 3-point line, they're going to make those quality looks that they get. I can't believe I'm going to say this, especially when the number is 155.5. I think I lean towards the over in this basketball game.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent call. I would lean to the over as well. And I think, honestly, Tennessee's going to, win this game, and I think they're going to score the cover. I think Chaz Lanier is a damn bucket, and he can match Mark Sears, gunning 3 for 3 in this contest. And that's the thing with Alabama. Their formula of success is offensive rebounding, spinning teams up, and they play a little bit of subpar defense, but they live and die by the 3. Over 47% of their jacks over the last month have come from beyond the arc. If they're falling, they're nearly impossible to beat. However, if they're not falling, we've seen that happen, and they're building skyscrapers and all the bricks that they lay. They're extremely susceptible. They're extremely vulnerable. And Tennessee has got a dynamite defense. They're number 83 in EFGD over the last 30 days. They're only giving up 47.6% from 2 and 33% from 3. Meanwhile, look at Tennessee offensively, number 2 in EFG offense. They're shooting 41.6% from way downtown. So they have been on fire, to say the least, but only 131 in EFG defense over that span. And again, it's all about Lanier. I mean, that guy's got limitless range. He can go mess around and drop 25 and 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And Sears is capable of doing that as well. But what version of Grant Nelson are we going to get? He's been on a side of a milk carton here the last couple of games. It has been, minimally impacting offensively and almost defensively. I know Youngblood and can score a ton. And you mentioned some of the other guys on that roster that can really fill up the cup. But I think Tennessee, with so much on the line, is going to show up and show out. I'm going to lay the chalk. But I agree. The strongest bet in this game is on the over.